Welcome to Tales from the Switch Vault, where I, Jim, look back at some of the weird and wonderful games from the Nintendo Switch. This time I summon the demons in Bayonetta. The title has a long and interesting history. Created by Osaka-based Platinum Games and published by Sega in Japan in October 2009 on the PS3 and Xbox 360, it was then ported alongside its sequel Bayonetta 2 in late 2014 on the Wii U, before both titles arrived on Nintendo Switch in February 2018, now published by Nintendo themselves as a double pack or as available as individual titles as well. Then Bayonetta 1 was released on PS4 and Xbox One in 2020, but without the sequel, which alongside the third game is a Nintendo exclusive, so all very curious. Bayonetta is a third-person character action hack-and-slash game, with you playing as the titular character who is a witch who battles with a variety of mythical creatures. Using a mixture of melee and range attacks and combinations, players take down the onslaught of enemies. Melee involves a satisfying mix of punches and kicks that flow very freely. Ranged uses guns, both in Bayonetta's hands and as the heel in her shoes. It's really cool. Witch time is a core mechanic, allowing you to dodge an attack and cause time to slow down. This is particularly useful during combat, but is also a crucial element in puzzle solving throughout the world. Combat has you hacking and slashing enemies who drop the currency halos that can be used to buy items and upgrades. There's a lot to choose from, allowing the player to switch up weapons and keeps things interesting. And then there's the boss fights that range from these huge monsters you're jumping all over with massive attacks to the nimble humanoid ones that are difficult to take on. The difference between these keeps it super interesting, particularly when the mind-bending gravity comes into play. Visually, the set pieces can be excellent. The game goes all out with these huge monsters attacking on, say, a falling platform in this massive environment. But it's the Xbox 360 era visuals, a little bit muddy, lots of greys and browns. Don't get me wrong, it's a decent looking game, but definitely of its era. The jump up in the sequel is huge in terms of visuals. Still, it's great to be exploring the fictional city of Vigrid and seeing the grotesque monsters juxtaposing the scenic visuals. The music is fantastic as well, and it accompanies the fast-paced action perfectly. There's over 150 tracks, which is huge, giving you loads of variety, and it's actually the creation of multiple composers. The English voice acting as well is excellent. They did a great job, and I really enjoy watching the cutscenes, which is not always the case in games. Though it's the huge set pieces and combat that drive you forward. It's not easy, you've got to learn the combos and timing to win each fight. Wandering throughout the levels, you will occasionally get blocked in and then be roundly attacked by a bunch of enemies. Win to proceed, and eventually a big old fight will take place. This gives the game such great pacing and variety. It's very different taking on the giant statue's head rather than 10 angelic figures all bundling onto you. The pace is relentless, in a good way, and I never found myself bored at all during the playthrough. How this stands out for Nintendo is this is one of their rare 18 rated games that they've published. Tonally, this is both in terms of violence and combat and the sexualized portrayal of female characters. The violence is brutal with bloody finishes, particularly the climaxes where you can throw enemies into torture devices and have an explosion of blood and guts. They are very satisfying once you've built the meter up and managed to pull them off. For the characters, it can veer from female empowerment to teenage boy fantasies, particularly in the cutscenes. There are moments where I'm blown away by how badass and cool she is. Then the camera will veer to a wildly voyeuristic angle that honestly sits a little uneasy with me. Sure, it's a game from the 2000s, but still. You only have to look at like Hades 2 to see that characters can be ridiculously sexy and shown through more than just the male gaze as it is here. Still, I'm glad they swung for this on both counts. There are very few games like it. It's an interesting aspect of a port that the developers probably didn't expect, but the loading screens here give you free movement and combo lists so you can actually practice between levels. However, this version, particularly on the Switch 2, it loads so quickly there's not even time to pull off a single combo. The game is divided up into chapters, and in total is about 12 hours long, though there are plenty of secrets to chase, items to unlock, and of course, high scores to achieve. Unlocking and moving up the difficulty settings with the highest rankings are the real challenge here for hardcore fans of the series. Developed by Japanese studio Platinum Games and directed by Hideki Kamiya, Bayonetta was the third major release from the studio. It's actually founded in 2007 by the merger of two studios, Seeds Inc. and Odd Inc., with the majority of the founders Capcom and Lumini. A year later, Sega announced that they would be partnering with Platinum Games to publish 4 risky games in Mad World, Infinite Space, Bayonetta and Vanquish. It was noted that this deal would help get the games into the Western market. All would release in 2009, and the intellectual properties would all be owned by Sega. The games were well received, and the studio would go on to work with other publishers such as Kojima Productions and work on Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance and Nintendo with The Wonderful 101. Development would start on Bayonetta 2, though Sega pulled the plug halfway through and then Nintendo stepped in to publish the game and get it finished, which explains why it was all so messy. The studio would release the Switch exclusives Bayonetta 3 and the spin-off Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. Though Bayonetta did not win any major awards, it was very well received at launch, with it scoring a 90 on Metacritic for PC. The Switch version scored a well-deserved 84 and would sell over 1.2 million copies on the platform, with over 5 million sold across all platforms during its lifetime. I really enjoyed my playthrough of this a couple of years ago. This is a genre I'm barely familiar with, having first tried out Devil May Cry on my Indonesian PS2 and not getting particularly far into it. I'm crap at the combat, feels like having some kind of fighting game background would help a ton. Saying that, I do really like this game, particularly the ridiculous story and characters. Bayonetta herself is just super cool, and having this game so story heavy with chunky cutscenes really sets it apart. For my ineptitude, the combat does work really well. So in conclusion, good game, I prefer the sequel. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more weekly Nintendo Switch video game essays. Right, I should probably go and complete the trilogy now.